Now it's time for Inspirational Women, and we meet Mary Kay Carson, an inspired and inspiring author who has over 50 books to her credit, books where she aims to connect kids, youth, with nature and with history by making it relevant, really a part of them. Mary Kay's latest series of books just out is Outdoor School. That is an interactive way of inspiring kids to be outdoors and to find their connection to all of nature. And it just might be the thing to wrap up summer and vacation time and get ready to see the seasons change and the way all nature plays in harmony. Good morning, Mary Kay. How wonderful to speak with you this morning.
Good to speak with you, too.
You are on a very busy trek this morning with all the conversations about this wonderful series, Outdoor School.
I am, but I'm excited to talk to someone in Seattle. I was actually born in Marysville many years ago.
Oh, my goodness. Well, you are a Washingtonian then, for sure. Well, you know, where you live now in Ohio, it sounds like a beautiful area because even though it sounds like you're in the city, but you're on kind of an expansive property.
Yes, Cincinnati is an interesting place because it is very, very hilly because it's in the Ohio River Valley. And so Cincinnati is a very old city, and so there's a lot of unbuildable hillsides. And so those have all become green space over the years, and now most of them are protected green space. So, for a city, there's actually a lot of green space.
Well, you are fortunate going back then to your roots and being born in Marysville. You might not recognize it these days because I think I dare say that Seattle to Marysville is almost continuous, building homes, all sorts of things. You're kind of hard pressed to find green space.
Yeah, I haven't been back to. I've been back to Seattle, and I have friends, on the peninsula that I visit, but I haven't actually. We left when I was a tiny baby, so it's not like I have a lot of memories from Marysville, but that's kind of the way the world, isn't it? All these little towns are just sort of now becoming suburbs
Of the big cities. But that's where you come in with all your wonderful writing and your passion for education and for science in being able to help kids and even us big kids navigate the world so that we can really find all the beauty and the nature that is around us.
Yeah, it is. You could put a kid outside and, they can say, oh, there's nothing to do out here, but there's lots to do out there. And once they sort of find out what there is to do, I feel like once they get started, it's a lifetime of endless fascination, right? Nature for me has been a lifetime of endless fascination, and that's what I hope kids get a sense of, is that there's just so much there to enjoy for their whole life. They'll never get bored.
Absolutely. And to that end, you have over 50 books now that you have written for youth, really around, well, there's a lot of history as well as the world of science and nature. Although this morning we want to focus more specifically on Outdoor School and then more specifically on one of the books, which is Animal Watching. So you are certainly, I think, infusing this opportunity for kids to really make this a part of life, that it's not just some lesson they learn in school, that they need to embrace it and they can embrace it.
Yes, and you can. I see some of the best hawks driving on the highway. You see them in the sky, and you can watch birds and look for animal tracks walking to the school bus. It just becomes part of your everyday life that what's going on around you. There's like this whole world that's going on around you all the time that most people are just completely, unaware of. And, once you know about it, you just can't stop noticing, oh, these prints were here yesterday, but today these raccoon prints seem to be over on the other side of the street. And to me, it's like I said, it's just endless fascination and builds an appreciation of nature and our place in it and all that it does for us.
Absolutely. And nature is, of course, as you say, it's all around us, and to be able to find it in our urban areas that we don't have to travel great distances is important because, as we were saying just a little earlier, that we our cities are just expanding and it's a lot of suburbs, so it may be hard to get out into nature. So to find what exists there, and as you said, I could relate to driving down the highway and seeing the hawks flying because they are there. They're scouting around for their next meal, right?
Hmm. Hmm. Absolutely, and our suburbs and cities are actually greener today than they were 50 years ago. And there's lots of wildlife that lives in cities now, right? I have coyotes that come through our yard, and I live in the city, and we have lots of birds, and sometimes it's actually easier to see animals in a place where they are used to people than out in the middle of the wilderness. But absolutely, you don't have to go to Yellowstone National Park to look for animals. They're all around us.
Well, and in one way, that's because we've really encroached on their habitat, isn't it?
Absolutely. And lots of people bring food with them. And, where people live, they plant trees and bushes that provide food for a lot of animals. And so sometimes suburban areas is better habitat than the farm field that was there before.
Right. I can attest to that. All the plants and shrubs that I have bought that the deer and the elk have really enjoyed
Yes.
for appetizers.
I'm sure they said thank you. They say thank you.
I don't know if they said thank you. Oh, let's imagine they did, right? So I found it interesting, Mary Kay, that some of the areas or the chapters, the segments in the book, Outdoor School Animal Watching, it mentions essential animal watching gear. So is there something in particular we need to be sure we have?
You're really going to have a pair of binoculars if you really want to get a good view of things. It just makes it so much easier not to have to get so close, and you'll see a lot more. So I would say that a pair of binoculars, and they don't have to be $1 million pair of binoculars, but a pair of binoculars is a really great thing to have. I mean, everything else is sort of common sense. You're going to about being outside, if you're around ticks or different bugs and all of that kind of thing. But a pair of binoculars, to me, is like for animal watching, it really, really helps.
And, along this line and all that we've been talking about in terms of this book and all the books that you write, considering this year that we have experienced, a year plus now, and kind of the upheaval and so much remote learning that's going on and parents having to take on the role of teachers so much of the time and teachers having to scramble, I feel that these books are a great resource for everyone involved, that they really help to bridge endless gaps.
I do too. It's just, it's been so difficult with school and learning, and I feel like online school, especially for a lot of kids, can feel like a chore, and you don't want learning to become a chore, right? We all need to be lifelong learners. And so hopefully over the summer break, kids will be able to spend time outdoors and they'll still be learning, right? The outside environment is the perfect environment for learning because unlike a screen that's right in front of you, outdoors is 360 degrees. What's at your feet, what's above your head, what's behind you, right? There are smells, sights, sounds. It's multi-sensory. The natural world is like a giant open-ended laboratory that you can experiment and observe in. And so books like this help kids, motivates them, gives them some objectives so they can get outside, and it helps them keep up with their reading. But mostly it's just about spending time outside.
Yes, appreciating this world, this wonderful planet that we live on.
Yes. It's like they say, you can't love what you don't know about. And so they need to know about it before you can care about it.
Exactly. And you were saying how, some of our cities have become greener. So there's that consciousness that has been evolving to when there's developments that occur that a certain amount needs to be dedicated toward providing a green space. So there's a consciousness that's alive, but that needs to be built upon. And that's why our kids and we, as their parents and their elders, and need to be in conjunction with them on learning that and promoting that, so that we just keep building more of that for our future.
That's right. And I often get asked for how to help sort of reluctant kids that just want to stay inside and play video games, how to get them to enjoy the outdoors more. And I always start with saying, you don't have a lot of room to demand that if you're demanding it from the couch. You have to get outside as well. And kids, of course, model the behavior of grown-ups. And so if, spending time outdoors, doing whatever, going for a walk, gardening, even just noticing things as you're walking, to the parking lot from the store back to the car, it's like, oh, look at that bird, or wow, I didn't know that those clouds had gotten so dark. All of those kind of things really, really help.
Well, and it helps in learning, but it has that other layer that it's building more of the relationship between you and your kids.
Yes, that's a good point. Yes.
And
it's something that you can share with your kids as they grow older. When I get together with my brother and sister, we always still, find a place to go for a hike, and that's how we spend time together.
Exactly, finding some new places we didn't know existed, and how all that came about, the history of it.
Yeah.
Right.
And how things change over time. I mean, that's one of the great joys of where I live in some green space, and we've lived here for 15 years and tried to work on some of the invasives and work in some more native plants, and just to see the change over those years, not only of the plants, but the birds and the animals that now show up because of them. There's nothing more rewarding.
And that's a great thing to be helping kids to nurture. And I think that they're guided through some of this or much of this in outdoor school animal watching, are they not?
They are, and it's built in levels of skill. So, you can't, most 8-year-olds aren't going to know the names of all the birds, right? So you can't just say, well, go out and find this bird, that bird, and this, when they don't know what they are. And so, we start with an activity that's just, think about how birds live. Some birds live together in flocks, and some birds seem to always be flying by themselves, and some birds seem to be mostly on the ground, and some birds spend a lot of time preening their feathers. And then they can go outside and just find some of these simple behaviors and check them off of a list and write down where they saw them. And now that they sort of build confidence that, yeah, I was able to, see what birds are doing, then we can start with, birds come in different shapes. There's duck shape and sparrow shape and hawk shape. And then they can go out and find birds that have these shapes. And it's through building those skills that they get to the point of, the difference between a fox sparrow and a white crowned sparrow, and the nitty gritty of eye stripes and wing bars.
And also their nesting sites, how that
Yes.
varies.
Yes, that their nests, and the behaviors for me is like one of the funnest parts of animal watching. And so many birds and other animals, you simply know them by the way that they're hopping around, right? That can't be anything but a nuthatch, because it's hopping upside down on the tree trunk, or that little furry thing that's off in the distance is obviously a squirrel, because it's running in funny hops that stop and start and stop and start. So the behavior is really one of my favorite parts of animal watching.
And it causes us to slow down rather than moving at a frantic pace that we seem to be doing so much of the time. Maybe not so much in this last year, but still, there's just that kind of a way of being that's become part of our life. So being in nature helps us to slow down, and it's so much healthier for us, certainly.
And make you feel like that there's nothing wrong with being slow. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like I could spend all this time, watching some squirrels, and for a second you'll catch yourself feeling a little bit guilty, like, oh, I should be, being more productive or getting something done. And then, you just like, this is how life is. You can just spend the time watching them, and that's how they go about their day. And I don't know, it brings me great comfort.
Well, there is comfort in that. There's so much that we can learn from that behavior as to how the animals do live their life, and setting their priorities, and the way that they have their cohesive little family units.
Yeah. And just to know that, just like other people, animals live in all different kinds of ways and all different kinds of lives, and it's like I keep coming back to the whole idea of things being infinitely fascinating. I just find it infinitely fascinating, and and to remember that we're animals too, and we share more with them than we have differences with them. So I think and that's something that kids know, right? I mean, all little kids love animals, and they just get busy with school and whatever else they're doing. But I feel like that germ is still there inside them.
Exactly. And by being able to nurture that, brings learning and education to a whole new and exciting level. It's just what you say about it then being infinitely fascinating, instead of feeling like, oh, this is such a chore. Being so much more involved.
Yes. I mean, I'm shocked, when I meet grown-ups who have lived in a place their whole lives, and they have no idea like what that tree is in their front yard that they've been looking at for 20 years, or don't know what a cardinal is, and it's not just about not knowing. To me, it's about, if you don't know those things, then you're not even noticing what's going around you, and so that's what it is to me, is just to get kids to notice the natural world that's going around them all of the time, and all that it's doing for us, and its own value in itself. It's especially during this pandemic year, the natural world has gone on very well, thank you. So.
And isn't that true? I think that's what we really noticed in the first few months. Without so many planes flying overhead, all of a sudden we had more songbirds in our yard.
Right.
right?
Right. Right.
So yes, there has been a wonderful piece of that. I'm going to take a little sidetrack, a little detour here, thinking of how nature, does very well, and it relates to Washington State because. 20 some years ago, I think it's 25 years ago now, Mount St. Helens erupted.
Yes.
And at the time, I was actually living in Hawaii. So I knew it erupted, but I had no other real knowledge of it except to see the cloud eventually kind of come past us a long time later. But when I moved to Washington State, and I then drove down the freeway and I came across this devastating landscape, and I thought, what on earth is this? It was just so bleak, these just gray ash everywhere. I didn't realize, though, at that time, that that's, of course, where Mount St. Helens had erupted and the river was gone, the trees were gone. But then within about 20 years, it became so lush. The river was there, the trees were just, quite massive and verdant. So nature can come back, despite us.
Absolutely. I mean, it's a perfect lesson for, this too shall pass.
Mm.
And it's good to remember that, the human species is only about 200,000 years old. And, that squirrel that you're mad at for eating all your bird seeds has, 20 times that length of time on the planet. So they've got something right. They've been around for a long time.
Exactly. So we've talked about being in the forests and the air and the animals around us. Let's talk a little bit about the rivers and the lakes and the streams and what to be adventuring with there.
The animal, the one thing is the rock fossil and shell hunting book has some great activities with shells, finding shells, and, of course, river stones that have been tumbled by the water. And the animal watching book has a section on fish and how to observe fish. And there's some tricks, to seeing through the water and seeing different kinds of fish. And there's a fun activity that that's fun to do with kids when you're outside at night is, you might have even seen it. You just put a lit flashlight and a rock in a baggie and tape it up good, or use a good rubber band and, lower it down with a rope, and then it just lights up, the bottom of the water off the dock or the stream that you're in, and you can just see all the animals, little crawdads and other little fish that are out at night. And it's just just like it is with animals on land, it's a whole nother world in the water after dark. And again, it's just an awareness of all of these things are living and going about their business all the time. And it's nice to know about it.
And then from this, I think we'll grow this appreciation of how we are all important parts of living on the planet. Nature, of course, as we were saying, how, we can impede nature, but nature has this intricacy of harmony that goes on, and that we need all of this life in order to survive on this planet.
I mean, the natural systems on the planet are what give us oxygen to breathe, right? The plants produce oxygen through photosynthesis. The plants help the water cycle, right? So we have water to drink, air to breathe, and the soil that produces our food is created through generations of life. I mean, these are systems that we depend on, and you can think of it as the earth cares for us through these systems, but we also need to care for it because there's so many people, and our takeover of the planet is so extensive that we actually affect nature now. And so building an appreciation of what life on Earth does for us and how we need to protect it is really important for the next generation. And I hope that they can do a better job than my own generation.
Yes, there was hope for our generation, but somehow it's left us lacking. So with your doing this work, though, Mary Kay, writing all these incredible and fascinating books for kids to engage them and draw them in and let them venture out to explore and have this greater understanding, in that way, I think you are playing such an important role for our future.
Well, you do what you can.
You do what you can, and you're doing what you love, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Because science is a love of yours, but writing equally. So to be able to put those two together, provides, over 50 books, and certainly this new series of Outdoor School, which I think is just so incredible. So we should say that all of these books are available at all of our favorite book sources, correct?
Yes, they are. They're available wherever books are sold. And there are 3 of the nature guides, and then there's also for younger kids that don't read yet, there are some sticker books where they can keep track of what they see by finding the stickers for that plant or animal and sticking them on a picture of it and keep track of what they're seeing that way. Which is fun for younger kids who can't read yet.
Right, absolutely. And and you're on all the social media. I know that the website, marykaycarson.com, is a great resource. I mean, it's just so chock full of information in a way to kind of go more in depth and find the resources that we need, correct?
Yes. It's kind of geared toward teachers, especially, so there's a lot of information there and information about my books and what's coming up next, and I am on Twitter. It's just at Mary Kay Carson, and Instagram and Facebook as well. I don't know, are people still on Facebook? I don't know.
Oh, now and then. It's best to cover all the platforms. Therefore, you're going to connect with most people then.
Yeah.
Right.
I feel like it's all divided by age now. Like my dad is still on Facebook, so I have to be on Facebook.
Yes, there you go. Well, you are just really such an incredibly wonderful person, woman, and an inspiration, and really such a gift to all of us, to our world, to be able to provide this information and inspire. Then it's for us to pick it up, but you do it in such a great way that we are the beneficiaries of all your talents. So thank you for doing the great work, and thank you for spending time with us this morning.
Well, thank you for the opportunity, and thank you for caring.
Well, it's the very least, right, that any of us can do. So many thanks, Mary Kay.
Thank you.
That brings us to the end of a very full hour of Inspirational Women with Mary Kay Carson and Sunday Morning Magazine with Dr. Julie Gatza. I'm Kate Daniels, your host, and I greatly appreciate your sharing this hour with me and these special guests. For details you might have missed or information you'd like to know, please just send me an email, kated@warm1069.com, and I will get right back to you. Also, if you'd like to listen again or share these important stories with your family and friends, find the podcast on our Warm 1069 webpage. Just click on the podcast tab, then either of the show names, and then look for the guest names. I now wish you and your family a day of some great adventures in health and in the outdoors. Have a week of the same, and then please plan to join me again next weekend for another hour of Sunday Morning Magazine and Inspirational Women on Warm 1069. Good morning.